Whatever happened to, whatever happened to, whatever happened to Jake Plumber? Hello and welcome to Fantasy Futbol Corner. I'm your host, Yoshi De La Cruz. I was just finishing up a song that I wrote, Whatever Happened to Jake Plumber, which should be available on iTunes come December 1st. Now, before we get on with the show, I've got to thank the sponsor, Excedrin. Excedrin makes a great little pill that can cure just about any ailment you're dealing with, unless, of course, you're dealing with a case of the fumbles. Oh, Philip. I bet after that game you felt like quite a big cunt. I just put my name up on the board for saying a bad word, and if I get another check mark by it, then it means I have an hour's worth of detention where I have to watch the WNBA. If anybody was paying attention to Monday Night Football this past week, they saw that Jonathan Baldwin made an amazing touchdown reception on a 40-yard pass from Matt Castle. Now, Baldwin's young and a little bit inexperienced, but it seems like Castle's really focusing in on him, integrating him as a part of the offense, so he's moving up on many people's lists. Now, a few weeks ago, Antonio Brown of the Pittsburgh Steelers was an even better kept secret than Arnold Schwarzenegger's illegitimate child. If he's still available in any of your fantasy leagues, I see him as a potential top 25 wide receiver for the rest of the season. For most of the season, it seemed that Brandon Jacobs was just playing little sister to Ahmad Bradshaw, but now that Ahmad Bradshaw has a broken foot, we could see some increased productivity from Jacobs, so keep him in mind. Kevin Falk came off the physically unable to play list and started his first game this season for the New England Patriots. If you're in a PPR league, he's definitely rosterable and could start any number of weeks that you have a bye. Finally, Michael Crabtree is emerging into the type of receiver that we thought he could possibly be. In the last 2 weeks, he has over 140 yards on 14 receptions, and Alex Smith seems to be very comfortable targeting this fine young talent. If anybody's going over to Lost and Found, I seem to have misplaced a couple of containers of cottage cheese and my old Houston Oilers helmet. Even though he's a starting running back, Marshawn Lynch is producing somewhere in the range of 2.7 yards per carry, which makes his beast mode look a little bit more like whiskey dick mode. Jared Cook, who looked like he could be quite the promising young tight end, is one 80-yard touchdown reception away from averaging 3 fantasy points per game. Many people associate the name Brandon Marshall with somebody who's capable of very high production, but in the last 25 games with the Miami Dolphins, he's only produced 4 touchdowns. I think it's not his fault. There's just a lot of ineptitude going on in that offense, but he's definitely moving down on my book. When you mail a letter. Now, before we get to some of the emails from the fans, I need to address a letter that somebody mailed me, which is kind of disturbing. It says, Dear Yoshi, thanks for nothing, and then a derogatory term that I'd rather not repeat on the show. It has some sort of phallus that is raining down onto my shoulder, and apparently somebody has chopped off one of my hands in an act of anger. I'm assuming this is because of my Chris Johnson recommendation, and all I can say is that, not even the best fantasy experts in the world get everything right all the time, so you're just going to have to deal with it and stop sending me this kind of mail. There's an email from Drew Madigan who says that he has Cam Newton as his quarterback, who of course has a bye this week and wants to have a suggestion for a replacement. Drew, I would say maybe look into Andy Dalton or Alex Smith. Both of those quarterbacks have double-digit fantasy points in 5 out of 7 performances this year. I think Andy Dalton has the potential of even being a top 15 quarterback for the rest of the season. And don't forget that Mark Sanchez this week goes up against the Buffalo Bills, and he's a great start as well. So either 3 of those guys, I think, would treat you just fine with Cam Newton being gone. Michael Landman from San Diego writes in, Dear Yoshi, should I start Victor Cruz playing New England or Pierre Garçon at Atlanta this weekend? Well, Michael, let me remind you that the New England defense is easier to score on than the 15-year-old Swedish girl that's living next door to me. I mean, I'm not saying, but kind of thing. Thank you to all of those who wrote into the show. If you have questions for me, be sure to either write on my Facebook wall. You can find me on Facebook, Yoshi De La Cruz, or you can email me, yoshithesexymofo@gmail.com. Thank you so very much for tuning into Fantasy Futbol Corner. I was your host, Yoshi De La Cruz, and I'm here to remind you that Amish people cannot play fantasy football simply because they don't get the internet.